Hi Crab Cakes, I'm Emil Hinault, and this is the Big Crab Cake channel, the channel dedicated to model cars, trains, and villages as one amazing hobby. We're closing in on 3,000 subscribers. If you haven't subscribed already, help push us over that mark by subscribing today. And if you like this video, please click the like button. It helps us. It's been over a year since we unboxed the Grand Central Express set by Lionel. At the time, we noted there were no passengers inside. And today, we're going to correct that. We'll show you how, and also give you the tips to make sure you have the right size passengers so it looks right. It's fun, it's easy, and it's going to look great. The first thing we want to do is get a cradle for this, because we want to be holding it, we don't want to be gripping it. What happens if you start trying to manhandle these things, you can push in these windows. They're sort of not really fragile, but easily pushed apart, and it's sort of hard to get them back right. We have this styrofoam cradle that we've had for quite a while. It's got a channel in it for the train car and another small channel in it for parts. It's a nice protective foam, and it holds pretty well. It doesn't feel as smooth as I like, so we're going to add this cloth. This is a soft cloth that I found at a dollar store, and I believe it's for washing cars. If it's soft enough for your car's paint, it's soft enough for these trains. So we're just going to push this inside, and now it's got a nice firm grip. That's something we can work with. Every passenger car isn't alike, and they all have different ways of coming apart, basically. This one requires 4 screws. A lot of these cars, you just take the bottom off, but on this set of cars, you take the roof off. And 2 of the screws are holding the roof, and 2 other screws are holding the floor with a seating area. We need to take that off too, so we can pull it out to add figures. There's 2 different size screws, and so we have 2 different size screwdrivers. One is an ordinary computer screwdriver, and one is a craftsman screwdriver, a little bit smaller. Both are Phillips head. The screws that Lionel uses in these are in a little bit tight at first because they put on a little bit of thread lock material when they launch them. So the first turn is a little bit rougher, and then they screw out very easily. Some of them can be a little bit stubborn, depending on how much thread lock they put on. The ones for the floor come out pretty easily. Now this screwdriver actually ran across a magnet, and so in this case it helps pull the screw right out, which is nice. I think it's getting weak, though. I probably need to do it again. This one I haven't, and I probably will. Magnetizing your screwdriver can really help keeping screws from getting lost or from pulling them out in a situation where we're screwing up. But in this case, the other 3 are loose, have been loosened, and we're going to just dump them in here. Here they are, and we'll just put them right here in a little tool tray. Now that the screws are off, we're just going to take the top off. It can require a little prying. The screws are holding in pillars on the ends, and in the middle here and here on both sides there are little clips, and this is it's pretty hard plastic. You're not really going to be able to just squeeze it to unclick them, so you sort of have to pry it up. We'll use a flathead screwdriver to help pry this up. But be careful, because it's hard plastic, but it's soft enough that you could dent it, and we don't want to do that. There we go. Inside our car, there are 2 lights that actually shine up, down, and up into the roof. And the roof has 2 bits of silver tape that they add on as a reflector to redirect light back down in and throughout the car. It's nice. Because the floor is now loose, because of the screw, we can pull this out. Now, we could take it apart and pull it out completely, and we have to disconnect these wires and reconnect them. We don't really need to do that for what we're doing. We just need to get it out so it's accessible. So we're going to pull it out and just set it on top. No reason to undo all that wiring and make extra work for ourselves. There are 10 rows of seats, 2 on each side. And on the ends are sort of bathrooms. We're not going to put people in those. We just want to see some passengers, so when the train goes by, it looks like there's somebody inside. Now, it's worth noting at this point, we want to find out which seats we want to use. So we're going to slide this back in. And notice that there are basically 5 windows behind which are the 10 seats. And this is good to see because if we put people in this case, this 3rd seat, they will be slightly hidden by this pillar. If we put that person in the 4th seat, they have much more open window to see them. If we want to put a person in this would be the 3rd row, which would be behind this window. We're going to want to put them more in the inside seat, so that at the diagonal view of them, make the train look fuller and you would see them. The last thing we want to do is go to the effort of installing a figure only to have it hidden behind one of these pillars. So we want to try to make the train look full. We don't want to make it look crowded, unless you do. And we want to do it with really the minimum amount of figures because they're not completely inexpensive. I mean, they're not over the top expensive, but you know, we're going to be doing this to 4 cars. There's 10 rows. If we're going to put maybe 10 figures in each car, that's 40 figures that we're going to be installing. And so we're just going to keep a note in our minds that for any figures we put in the outside rows, we're going to want to put them in the even numbered rows. And any figure that we place on an inside aisle seat, we put in an odd number row. And that'll give us the best chance to see those figures when the train is on the track. So let's set this down and let's talk about which figures to use. There are a number of companies that make passenger figures for these cars, and they make them in a variety of sizes. We have these produced by Bachmann. They are O-scale figures. These come in a pack of 6, and they are seated figures. Now, one thing about these figures is that they're a little bit wide, and these seats are a little bit narrow, and there's a reason for that. These are intended for O-scale, the scale trains, whereas this is more a traditional train or an O27 gauge. Let's take a look at what that comparison means. This car is O-scale, which means it's the size of track that it runs on, but it's considered O27. It means it runs on the smallest track, but also that it's scaled a little bit smaller, more toy-like and more to fit on smaller layouts. You could put this train easily on a layout that fits on a 4x8 sheet of plywood. It's fun, and it's a great one. The O-scale scale trains are also run on that size track, but they need a wider loop, but they run on that width of track, but they're longer, as you can see. They're also slightly wider. Not that much, but the seating inside and the interiors are. And because these are a little bit wider and longer, they can handle slightly larger figures. Figures like these made by Bachmann are really designed to fit in these larger scale trains. This won't be the first time we've added figures to a train. We've done it before with this boxcar, which you can see is also scale. In this case, we added figures, and we also added some boxes and crates and barrels to the inside. And a boxcar like this is much easier to work with. You have one big open space, so the size of the figures isn't really all that important. In this case, the seats are really tiny. You know, this car is built with the seats up against the window, and there's a big aisle, which really doesn't help much. Rather than make the seats wider, they've made them narrower to accommodate the fact that this is a smaller O27 size train. As a result, it's unlikely that a regular O-scale figure is going to look right in this. Fortunately, our friends at the Golden Gate Depot Train Company have thought of this, and they've produced their own line of figures that they call Little People. This is the Bachmann scale figure, and they are highly detailed, and for that reason they're more expensive. I think these were $12 for 6 figures, and if we're going to be putting 10 figures in each car, you know, this can add up. Little People from Golden Gate Depot were somewhere around $25 for 36 figures. They're less detailed and they were less expensive. We also found some that weren't made by a major manufacturer, and we bought them in bags. We found these at the most recent Train Collectors Association meet in York, Pennsylvania. It's held twice a year. And these figures came in a bag. They are 50 of them for $20. And they actually have a nice level of detail. So you see the scale ones that are a little bit too wide and have decent detail. And here are the ones from the train show. They're a little bit smaller. They have a medium amount of detail. And the Little People have the least amount of detail and are the medium priced ones, but they're narrower. All of these might have a little bit of trimming to do anyway, because this train's small. We might have to shorten up legs or something like that, or trim the narrow ones. We're not going to use these, because there's a lot of detail and expense for something you won't even be able to see, and very hard to fit. And we're going to do a mixture of these. We'll do some combination of these figures. These little people are designed for 027 trains, and these figures that we found at your train show are actually sold as figures that would work in S gauge trains. I'm not positive they really would. They seem pretty big to me for S gauge, but S gauge is smaller than 027. It's bigger than HO. You don't see a lot of S gauge trains, but there are some out there, and there is a need to put figures in them. I don't really believe these would fit in there, but either way, they're smaller, and so they're going to work for us. And also, the price was right. 50 of them for $20. Let's talk about how we're going to attach them. The two best ways are with garden variety crazy glue. Crazy glue will do an excellent job. It does work best with porous things. This plastic is a little hard, but it's still plenty soft that it would work just fine. If we should decide to remove the figures later after applying them with crazy glue, it's a little bit harder to get them off without sort of causing damage to the chairs, to the seats. We would have to use a solvent or softener to get them off. And all of that works fine, and it's clean and it's very clear. I'm not really worried because the glue is going to be in the seat part of the seat, and we're not going to see it. So even if it's a little thick, it really won't matter. And so for that reason, we're going to use hot glue. I have a rechargeable battery pack powered Ryobi hot glue gun, and I've been using this a lot, and it works great. You don't have the cord to drag around or get in the way, or you don't have to worry about sitting close to an outlet. And if the power pack runs out, you just snap another one on. Since I have this sort of tools in my garage for drills and saws and things, it was a no-brainer to use these, and it was relatively inexpensive. I definitely recommend the Ryobi hot glue gun. We're going to use that because it's very workable. Hot glue is nice. It's easy to work with. It holds quickly. It holds well on these things. And it's easy to get off. If you need to redo them at some point, it doesn't really do any damage to the figures or the train. We have a general idea of placement for these. Looks like all of them are a little too tall. We're going to have to trim a little bit. Let's start off with this one. I have to take off these feet. And I can do it with nail clippers. They do a nice job. That fits nice. You can also use wire clippers. This one's still a little bit wide, so we're going to want to trim him down, make him a little narrower. Make him a little thinner in an area where we won't see. That one's fine. That one's actually okay. So it turns out, in the package that we got from York that had 50 pieces for $20, the least expensive one, there were some 027 size figures, but there were also some S scale figures, and they fit without any kind of modification at all. And I think that S scale figures are the answer to this. I think when you have an 027 train car like this, I think the best figures are S scale. A little harder to find, but worth it. The S scale figures fit without really any trimming whatsoever. Oop, I overdid that. This hot glue can leave some strings sometimes. And I believe that happens more often when the gun's not hot. So you can put the glue on the figures and put the figures in, or you can put the glue on the seats and then add the figures. Now that we have our figures all glued in, let's get this back together, get it on the track, and see how it looks. There it is, all buttoned up and ready to roll. See that all the heads and faces are at window height. If we had used some of the larger figures, then we might have had a situation where some of the heads were above the window and it just wouldn't look natural, it wouldn't look normal, and it would be very obvious. So in this case, they all worked out really well. I think this is going to look fantastic. Let's get this on the layout. It'll get lit up, and we'll see what it looks like running. So there you have it. It was a fun and easy project that has a nice payoff. These cars look much better. They're fun to run, and I thought they looked great on the layout. I hope this was helpful. It was a fun activity. It's perfect for a rainy or snowy day, or any time when you have a couple hours, you just want to sit and do a nice project that you can do from start to finish that improves the look of your layout. And it was enjoyable to do. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you receive notice of upcoming content. We've got a lot coming out in the future. You won't want to miss it. Thanks for coming by, and we'll see you next time on the Big Crab Cake channel.